What's up, guys? So today I'm coming at you with a review video. We're specifically talking about the Abby Jimenez trilogy. Hey. So as you guys may know, I had mentioned that I had read Part of Your World, partially, but couldn't remember if I loved the story or not. To be quite honest, I have a feeling I DNF'd this. I think I read it halfway through and then DNF'd it because I wasn't quite in the vibes for the book at the time, but finally was able to sit down and finish this book. And then I loved it so much that I had to read the second one. And then I loved this one so much that I had to read the third one, which released, as I'm sure you guys know, April of this year. The thing about these books that I can honestly say is they will take you for a ride. It's a great story. I think Abby Jimenez's writing style, the way she creates her characters, the way she writes her stories are beautiful. But outside of that fact, the fact that she's able to talk about the various aspects of PTSD, trauma, life experiences, relationships with other people in your life, and how it impacts your day-to-day romantic relationships, your friend relationships, your work environment is beautifully done. Beautifully, beautifully done. And I can honestly only say that I applaud her fully because it was very enjoyable to read these books, just given the fact that they were done so freaking well. That being said, let's jump into the quick reviews. Also, before I get into that, actually, Abby Jimenez had a series that she wrote, another trilogy that she wrote, which actually was published before these were. Now, I know that these are the ones that were publicized by Book of the Month, so those are the ones that I'm familiar with. But I did go ahead and get the Friend Zone, the Happy Ever After playlist, and Life's Too Short by her as well. And it sounds like that's also a trilogy. And so I'm really excited to read those as well, because if they're anything like these books, they're going to be hard 5-star reads for me. Now, what I can honestly say is the only other author who's given me this kind of feels, this kind of character development, this kind of background, this kind of story, this kind of investment into people, into characters for modern day romance writers has been Emily Henry. Now, I absolutely adore Emily Henry. I would recommend all of her books to everyone. I know there was some mixed reviews regarding Funny Story, but I actually really enjoyed that one as well and would definitely recommend over and over and over again to multiple people. That being said, I say you're yawning. Part of Your World, I think, was just beautifully done. This book, kind of this idea of marrying two different worlds, was phenomenal. So again, the baseline of this story is that there is the two main characters. There is Alex, and then there is Daniel. Now, Alex is the daughter of two very, very successful doctors who are basically from a lineage of physicians that have made a humongous impact in the society, and they have also been on the trust of the hospital. Very, very strong individuals. And the dad, unfortunately, is a little bit of a masochist. He's a little bit of a narcissist, and he definitely pins a lot of things on his children, like almost making them vie for his affection and attention by being his version of quote unquote perfect. He also puts these delineations on his wife, and his wife also has to face this dynamic. And it really digs into the relationship you have with your parents and how it makes you view yourself, which I think was very, very entertaining for me personally and very interesting to read as well. Alex is a very, very successful ER doctor in her late 30s. She is about to get out of a toxic relationship with a man that her father absolutely worships and adores, but has done everything possible to push her away. We start off the book knowing that he has done something awful in their relationship, and she is not able to reconcile with it. She's ready to walk out of this relationship, and in cues Daniel. Now, Daniel is a carpenter by trade. He also runs a Airbnb out of his family home, which his grandparents had accidentally left to his mother, who has been an absentee parent his entire life. She's been in and out of his life. She had him when she was 15, and he was raised by his grandparents, very, very loving parents, in a very small town vibe. And he's running this Airbnb and just trying to keep his head afloat above the water. He's dealing with his own personal issues and trying to buy this particular piece of land in order to continue the heritage that his grandparents have left behind. This home has been in the generations for 6 generations, and he's doing everything he can to preserve that and also deal with his absentee mother. The only catch, of course, is that he is younger. He's 28. He also has a wonderful dog. You also have quirky neighbor characters in this book, and one of them happens to own a pig named Kevin Bacon, who's running around the town as the town mascot. But very, very beautifully done book about the blending of 2 different worlds. We have Daniel, who's tatted up and comes from like small town vibes and has wonderful relationship with his entire community. And then you have Alex Montgomery, who is the debutante queen of the ball. She is a respected physician, but in her family's eyes, she is medical royalty. And it's about her having to quote unquote live up to that expectation while also trying to find her own voice and her own joy. And I just think that Abby Jimenez did a poetic job of writing this book. And I cannot say enough how much I loved this novel. I laughed during this novel. I cried during this novel. I went from 0 to 100 in 10 seconds with this novel. This was a hard 5-star read for me, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who would be interested in that kind of vibe. It does have some PTSD, toxicity aspects to it that's discussed, if that's a trigger warning for you. It does have tropes on cheating, difficult relationships, things like that. So if that's something that's going to trigger you, then maybe don't read this. But I will say that Abby Jimenez has just done a beautiful job of pulling this story together. And there's so much depth to both of these characters. There's so much depth to their relationship, not only with themselves, but between them, but also their own journey of finding their own sense of self and independence. And then outside of that, there's also a lot of beauty in this book because of the relationships that are developed with other characters in the novel. The other thing that I really enjoyed about this book is that the male character in this book is not trying to change the female. He is not trying to, push her one way or another or take away her sense of self. It's all about support and kind of being there to the best of his ability so that she can be independent and successful outside of him, but also have him in the background taking care of her and supporting her. And I just think that's so important in a novel because neither character is 100% lost in the other character. There's a lot of growth and development that happens throughout this book, and it's a very, very, very wonderful book. There is a reason why this was a fan favorite back in 2022, and now that I've read it, I am definitely diehard on that Abby Jimenez train, and I definitely recommend this book. Now, the next 2 books that I'm going to talk about are part of this series, which is also why I'm discussing it in this video. So next up in this series, we have Yours Truly. Now, Yours Truly follows the best friend from the first book. Her name is Brianna. Let me just make sure that is correct. Yes, it is Brianna. Just wanted to, confirm. And Jacob. So Brianna is a very strong, powerful character. She is dealing with some very heavy stuff at home. Her best friend just moved to a completely new clinic. She's just put her hat in the gear to take on the chief position of emergency medicine at her hospital. And in walks Jacob Maddox. And now Jacob Maddox is known as Dr. Death within the first 2 chapters of the book because he's losing 6 patients in his first visit. He's quiet, he's quirky, and he deals with anxiety. He deals with social anxiety. He deals with difficult situations that make him uncomfortable in any kind of new environment. And he's coming out of a situation where He dated a woman, thought it was his end-all be-all, has been with her for 2.5 years. They break up, and 3 months later, she falls in love with his younger brother, and now they're getting married. He is dealing with the fallout of that, trying to be the bigger person and just be happy for his younger brother and this woman who he believes had been the love of his life, while also trying to deal with his kooky family who have no sense of boundaries but absolute love and adoration for Jacob. So it was really fun watching him trying to navigate that dynamic. Meanwhile, coming back to Brianna, as I mentioned, heavy situations going on in her home. We learn in the first book that her younger brother, who is in his early 20s, is undergoing kidney failure and is on dialysis and needs a kidney donor. And so he's just kind of losing his zest for life. And Brianna's trying to navigate that. She's also going through a terrible divorce herself and has now found herself as a successful physician back in her parents' childhood home, taking care of her younger brother, which is very much to her like moving backwards in life. Meanwhile, in walks this new doctor, and now there's another candidate that they're holding the election for so that she doesn't win, hands down, unopposed, for the emergency medicine chief role. These two characters start off very enemies vibes and then slowly get to know each other, and then you morph into a fake dating trope. I would say that both the characters have a lot of depth to them. Their family characters are wonderful to read. It's also really nice that Alex and Daniel's story is also kind of woven into this so nicely. Alexis's character in the first book is phenomenal, like I have to say, and Daniel's character is phenomenal in the first book as well, but there is just something about Brianna and Jacob that really spoke to me. I think their relationship is super cute. It's also nice to see that Brianna truly has to work through her PTSD of the horrible things her ex-husband did to her, and we kind of get to know a little bit more about that history and that story. And you also get to see Jacob kind of slowly breaking out of his anxiety and feeling comfortable in this person, feeling moored, feeling safe, feeling understood. And you can see parts of the story where he, from his perspective, is written to describe the differences between his relationship with Brianna versus his relationship with Amy, his ex. And so overall, I would just say this story is hilarious. There's kooky characters in this book. The grandpa is my absolute favorite. It is Jacob's grandpa, who is in wheelchair. His mom is a world-renowned sex therapist, so her views on certain things is also really funny. And the siblings are just absolutely hilarious. So all I can say is that Abby Jimenez did it for me again in this book. Again, laughed, cried, had all the feels, went through 0 to 100 emotions in like 10 seconds flat. And this was another solid 5-star read for me. And this was released in 2023, which then brought us to book 3 in this series, released this past April, just for the summer. And I have to say, this one was phenomenal. This one ties to the first 2 books because the main female lead character, Emma, in this book, her mother happens to be the absentee mother that Daniel had mentioned. And I heard the interview that was done with Abby when she was talking about her character development and her storyline for these books, and she straight up mentioned that she wrote Emma's character because she was always wondering what Amber, Daniel's mother, would have looked like. What would a child have looked like being raised by an absentee mother who may not have had the same dynamic that she and Daniel had, where Daniel was raised by his grandparents. And so it's really nice to see this storyline as well. Emma's PTSD is very deeply rooted in her. She has a very difficult relationship with her mother. She's been through the foster system, and throughout that foster system, she's found her best friend, her person, her more on her lonely little island, and her name is Maddie, and Maddie is her rock. Emma also happens to have a terrible streak in the sense that every time she dates someone, when they break up, that guy then moves on to their perfect someone, and it never happens to be Emma. Meanwhile, Q and Justin is the main protagonist in this novel. He is a young, successful engineer who is just leading his happy life when things go a little crazy with his family, and he now suddenly finds himself moving back into his mom's old house, raising all of his siblings, of which he has 3, 2 teenagers and then 1 little girl. And it's just a very cute dynamic watching him have to go from being this independent single, like, you know, living in his own apartment life guy to now being a single dad, basically, because his mom is unable to be in the picture for a few months or a few years, really. And so it's really interesting in that regard because you get to see his family dynamics and his development as a character. Again, you have that kooky side character going on as well in this story. But the other fun part is the reason why Justin and Emma decide to date just for the summer is because Justin also happens to be cursed in that every time he dates someone, it never works out, and that person ends up moving on with the next person they meet. So he is the person before your one and only. And so he and Emma decide that if they date, they can break the curse, and hopefully the next person they date will be their person. I can honestly say, again, this book just made me cry, made me feel all the feels. I did want to read a certain paragraph from this book for you guys because it's just so beautiful, and you'll understand what I'm saying when I say Abby Jimenez's writing is not only stunning and beautiful and poetic, but there's so much more depth to these books than just romance. So, the best kind of love doesn't happen on moonlit walks and romantic vacations. It happens in between the folds of everyday life. It's not grand gestures that show how you feel. It's all the little secret things you do to make her life better that you never tell her about. Taking the end piece of the bread at breakfast so she can have the last middle piece for her sandwich when you pack her lunch. Making sure her car always has gas so she never has to stop at the pump. Telling her you're not cold and to take your jacket when you are in fact very, very cold. It's watching TV on a rainy Sunday while you're doing laundry and turning her light off while she's fallen asleep reading. Sharing pizza crusts and laughing about something the kids did and taking care of each other when you're sick. It isn't glamorous. It isn't all butterflies and stars in your eyes. It's real. This is the kind of love that forever is made of. Because if it's this good when life is draining and mundane and hard, think of how wonderful it will be when the love songs are playing and the moon is out. I was grateful that life I'd been forced into taught me this lesson. I just wish I hadn't learned it with Emma. Like, what? What? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful depiction of real life, relationships, how love is created, how love is made. What is love? This concept of love that we're all taught in Disney movies is like instant attraction, and this man and woman fall in love, or this man and man fall in love, or this woman and woman fall in love, and now life is all happy and dandy. No, that's not reality. These books talk about how much work and effort it takes to make a relationship last, and how sometimes it's the harder moments and the sadder moments where just the small things you do for each other matter so much more in the long run than any little thing. And I love the fact that Abby Jimenez writes these very complex, very real characters that are not truly evil, they're not truly good. They all have their flaws, they all have their wonderful characteristics, they all have intriguing relationships with each other, and it really shows how relationships in your past can affect your relationships in the future. It shows characters going through the motions that they need to go through in order to heal, in order to be better individuals, in order to be able to sustain healthy relationships, and showcases that you can't just jump into a relationship without taking care of yourself first and rooting in yourself. And I think it's so beautiful that all of these characters find themselves despite each other. Like, they do help each other reach that goal and that end journey, but each character has to put in the work themselves at the end of the day to get to that point. And I just love how beautifully and poignantly she shows that in her books. So all I can say is Abby Jimenez did it again. I once again went through all the emotions, 0 to 100 in 10 seconds flat. I laughed, I cried, and I can honestly say this was another 5 stars. So June already has been a wonderful month for me because that is 3 books, my friends, 3 books back to back that are 5-star reads that will probably continue to be 5-star reads for many, many, many years to come. And I'm super, super, super stoked. and excited about that. And I would recommend these to anybody who's looking for a fun romance, fast-paced read that's enjoyable, that's going to make you go through all the feels with just a little bit more character development and a way to really fall in love with these characters. I can honestly say the Part of Your World series is probably one of my favorite series to date, and I will definitely recommend for ages to come. Thank you so much for joining me. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and I would love for you to be a part of this bookish community. If you liked this content and you like contents like this, anything book related or whatnot, please do consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. I would love to have you be a part of the community. Also, if you have any other books that have these type of vibes and feels that you want to recommend, please do drop a comment below, because I would be happy to look at it and review it and chat with you soon about what I got out of that book. And as always, thank you so much for watching today, wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon. And I will see you very, very soon. Take care. Bye.